Hi, my name is Robert Zohner, and I'm a resident of independent living here at Merrimack Bluffs. And I agreed to make a presentation of my service in Korea. And I was there for a year. And but anyway, I'm digressing. I did want to thank Margaret Cox for helping put this together, and also my friend Sam Brown, who has been an immense help in trying to teach me how to talk in front of people. And in addition to Margaret and Sam, I do have family out in the audience, and I'd like to introduce them. They were my daughter Jennifer and her son Cole and Josh, and my daughter-in-law Karen Zohner, and she has I think 3 or 4 people. We had 2 twins, but anyway, she got Jack and Libby, and but I'm going to welcome them, and I'm glad they're here. But I do want to talk my service in Korea, and my military service in Korea, and as you see on the map, it shows the peninsula of Korea, and the location that I was in we landed at Incheon and moved about midway across Korea, and then headed north, and we wound up in North Korea, right at that line between the orange and the red. That's the area that I was in. And first of all, I guess I should start with my military service. I spent 24 months in the Army. The first 12 months was at Fort Meade, Maryland, and that's where I took my basic training. And and there it is. I don't know whether people remember that, but that's from October of '50, and that's 70 years ago. And but anyway, that was what my barrack was on the right, and I don't know how many men have been in the States and at the Army at this time, but that's what they looked like, and I imagine they will look the same now. But the other one is going to be the platoon. I want to show you a picture of a platoon from Fort Meade, Maryland, and we did a lot of marching, and but that's our platoon, and as you can see, there's we're loaded with everything we could carry to go on a all-day march. Yeah, this is where I'm going to have to practice how we're going to fit this together, and. Oh, well, when I was in Fort Meade, Maryland, they after basic, they did move me into the radio maintenance group, and at that point, during that first year, I was promoted to sergeant, and that had a lot to do with the last year in my service, because as a sergeant, when I got to Korea, they didn't need radio men, they needed squad leaders. But it was in 1951 that the 3rd Armored Cavalry, including myself, was ordered to Korea, and we landed at Incheon. And in here and we set up the first night in pup tents. And if you can look close enough at the hillsides in the back, those hillsides are where we practice running up and down the hills to get used to the altitude and the terrain. And we all we had was our rifles and our backpacks. And but anyway, the next picture is a picture of the hill that we practice on. Now that picture was taken from a VFW magazine, but I noticed it was exactly how we looked when we were running up and down those hills. They had our field jackets and backpacks and the ever-present shovel. And I guess you want me to talk to you. I have to practice this at home too. But anyway, while we were on this hill, we the first day or so we just ran up and down just to get used to the terrain. But then they brought people up that showed us how to use hand grenades and live ammunitions. And this was the first time we used live ammunition, except for basic training when we were just shooting at targets. But now they were teaching us how to run up and down the hill with a loaded weapon, and also to throw hand grenades. And I had never thrown a hand grenade before, but some people that had long arms could throw them overhand, and a lot of them just had to lob them. And but yeah, they had to teach us how to do all that. We did that on that practice hill. And let's give them a picture of the view of the mountains. And I guess I was funny. I always carried a camera, and I didn't carry it when I was in combat so much because you didn't have time to take a picture. But I normally try to take a picture I would remember. But yeah, the view of the mountains, I don't know where that was, but it was just something to remember, or to remind me just what the Korean hills look like. Oh, and yeah, after we were practicing on those hills, the one day we did not practice. We went around a hillside, and there were trucks waiting, and they handed us grenades, and we had to fill every pocket we had with grenades. Our pants pockets, our field jackets, we had lapels on our shoulders. There was 2 or 3 grenades on each one of those, and then the ammunition. They gave us about 6 bandoliers of clips of ammunition. They were metal clips of about 8 shells in each clip. But anyway, they strung those over our shoulder, and then they marched us north. And from that time on, we were in enemy territory. And from that time on, by that time we had a buddy, and he stayed. Well, we picked him up when we made our pup tents that first night in Korea. And but anyway, he stayed with me, and from then on we'd share a foxhole every night. And I have to admit, there were people shooting at us, and I often wondered why that dirt was jumping out of the ground about 3 foot from us. And those were shells coming, rifle shells coming in. And it's amazing how, you just accept that. You don't worry about that. But we dug that foxhole big enough for 2. And we would, one would sleep and the other would stay awake to keep guard. And we have a picture here of Zohner in a kind of a foxhole or a bunker. But that's me. If you can pick me out just to prove I was there. But I did want to mention that when we were going north in the mountains, when it got dark, when the sun went out, it got pitch black. And the first couple of nights, you couldn't see the hand in front of your face. And by luck or by somebody making a good decision, they brought in searchlights behind us, and the big, huge high-powered searchlights, and they sent these big beams up into the sky, and they aimed them at the clouds right above our positions, and it was like a full moon effect, and that quieted things down on both sides because we could see across 100 yards where the enemy was, and they didn't want to be shown, and we didn't either. But anyway, it kept it quiet, and well, Sam, you're right. It's hard to read what I've written here. I will have to. We'll just jump ahead. We as we went north, it was just foxhole to foxhole, and it was very repetitious. But then we found out that we're involved in a what they called Operation Nomad, and we're really coming up on their winterized position, and it was well fortified, and there were trenches and tunnels. They had foxholes, amazing foxholes and bunkers, and they had a lot of grenades. They used grenades and mortars, really. But anyway, there were two hills, really. As we took those hills, it was still daylight, but it was getting dark. And by the time we got them off of the hills, the enemy really did not go very far. And as we settled into their holes, you could hear, when it got dark, you could hear them digging foxholes. I don't know how far away they were, but they didn't go very far, and it was a bad night. The hand grenades and the mortars kept coming all night long, and we lost. I hate to say how many we lost. I don't know, but we needed a new company commander. We needed new platoon leaders, and whatever happened to my squad, it was lost in the mix-up of people. They scattered all over. But anyway, they did reorganize. Oh, when we got up in the morning, the enemy was gone, and thank goodness for that. But it gave us time to reorganize. We got a new company commander, and I think really they had them waiting down at the bottom of the hill. They knew we'd be some losses, and but anyway, there was field promotions that morning, and the one that I remember most, they made me a sergeant first class, and I was the new company platoon sergeant, and I was in charge of wire communications and supplies. And there's one slide or one picture that shows a group of men. I'll wait until that comes in. Oh, there was a picture of an enemy bunker, Operation Nomad. That's not an actual picture, but we went right by that thing, and we had many of those on our way up to the top of this hill, and our men that were ahead of us would use grenades to clear those, and so we didn't have any trouble ourselves as we went up the hill. But anyway, we spent the next day getting reorganized, and as we left, I did find it was at Christmas time. I found a Christmas card from the Chinese People's Volunteers, and it was dated 1951. But anyway, I kept that as a souvenir. I've got that. The next picture is Bob Zohner in a South Korean laborer. This is a picture of, he's a South Korean boy, and well, I don't know how old he was. The young and old look about the same, but they were, we called them chogi bearers, but they brought up, they followed us up each hill, and they replaced all our ammunition and water and fuel. When it got cold, they brought up fuel oil for us, and then when it got really cold and nasty, they would cut steps in the ice and snow. They even put up heavy rope banisters to help them pull themselves up the hills with their loads. But we have another picture of the Chogi bearers in 3 GIs, and that's me in my winter uniform. And if you notice, it's kind of hard to see, but when you're in the field, we had no indication of rank. Our helmets did not have sergeant's stripes or anything, and but anyway, that picture is kind of interesting. There's 3 GIs, and you should be able to pick them out. Well, 4, including me. But the boy on the extreme right is ours. The next one is a Korean, and then myself, and then a Korean, and a Korean. And the guy sticking up in the back is Al Belshaw, and I'll get to him in a minute. And then another GI and another Korean laborer. But yeah, we had a good group, and it seems like every time we got a bunch of people together to talk, they wanted their picture taken, so we took a lot of pictures. The next one is Bob Zohner and medic Doc Belshaw, and he was a pretty good buddy of mine after we got to know each other, and he was a medic, and he was part of our company, but he was the medical group, and he brought up, well, he followed us up the hill, and his main job was to apply first aid to as best he could. Since then, I've talked to him on the phone and corresponded by letter, but he complained about they didn't train him for all that he got involved in. There's a lot he couldn't handle, but we became good friends, and I did want to just point out he was tall, and he was I thought a handsome young man for a grunt in the Army. But anyway, I got acquainted with him and asked him, I said, do you know what nationality are you in? I don't know whether you can, even give a guess, but he's pure Portuguese. And I thought that was interesting. Oh, the next picture is a march back from a USO show, and I'll have to admit, after we captured that one last hill, we got involved in a replacement by I was in the 24th Infantry Division, and we were replaced by the 40th Division from California, and I didn't have enough time to go back with the 24th. But I was absorbed in the 40th, and I wound up as a assistant radio chief in the regimental headquarters. And at that time, we built a big bunker for the radio. And well, I do want to mention this here. I don't even have it written down. But once we got settled with this new regiment, we had to organize a radio link all the way across Korea, and it was by radio. And up on the hill, I had no idea of what they had for radios. All we had was wire. But anyway, when I got down there where there's a road and there was a regimental headquarters, I found out that all the radios were mounted in back of a Jeep or a truck, and they used a whip antenna. And I am a radio amateur, and I think I know a little bit about radio theory. But anyway, I do know that whip antennas are the last resort. They're handy, they're mobile, but they don't go very far. And in the mountains of Korea, if there was a hill in the way, the signal did not go through. And there was another radio amateur and myself. We got together, and we had agreed to build what we call a long wire antenna, and we found an area, and we trimmed some trees, and we put up a wire about 200 feet long, and it gets kind of technical, but we oriented that wire north and south, and it was on insulators, and we had to build a what we call an antenna tuner to tune the wire to the transmitter. And anyway, that made all the difference in the world. Everyone along the line of, well, the northern line of Korea could hear us, and we wound up to be the net control for the radio group from then on. And I hope Charlie Troxel is here, because he's a radio amateur too, and he should understand the importance of a long piece of wire. But anyway, that we were very happy that we were able to help in that new radio system. Well, we were back. Actually, we were off the lines, and it was very safe, and but it was cold. It was. There were times when it was 14 degrees below zero, and but anyway, the next picture is where we had time to go to a USO show, but that's a typical picture of the Korean, the Korean countryside, and that's a bunch of GIs marching back to their camp from the show. And we also had time to go to Japan for R&R for a 5-day R&R, and we usually wind up in the evening at the Ginza Beer Hall in Tokyo. And this particular picture shows me, about the 1, 2, 3, third one from the right, sitting with a crazy cap on. But the rest of those boys were from New Zealand and Canadians. And we enjoyed each other, having a beer. But we also got acquainted with some of the local food, which we did not enjoy. It was all sushi, and we didn't spend much time eating the native food. The next picture is a radio operator's repair regiment, and again the date's 1952, so it's getting late for me, and you might try to look and see if you can find me. But this is the radio operator's repair regiment, and there was no level ground in Korea, and but anyway, we were on a hillside, and that was our latrine. And if you look close enough, I'm the one on the very left-hand side with no shirt. And but it was a good group of men, and we enjoyed that time together. Oh, I did want to mention too, when we traded, when the 24th Division was replaced by the 40th, it was done at night. The first night, the officers and the non-coms came and visited their replacement, the guy they were replacing, and I had somebody who was going to take my place. So I was never so happy as to show him all the outposts we had and the wire runs. We had a little switchboard that was in my bunker, and I showed him that, and I was able to let him take over on that. But yeah, I had a very nice bunker, and I did want to mention too, somebody was very generous with Army blankets, but all the time we were in Korea, we lived in the ground. It was either a bunker or a foxhole. And but like in this, where we had the switchboard, we were able to cover the ground with Army blankets, and that was a big help. But and the other important thing, when we were in this new regimental headquarters, a replacement like me took over the quarters of the man I was replacing. And the next picture is the the last home of Zohner before going home, and as you can see, it's a pretty fancy bunker. It's got a door and a window, and but again, it was built in the environment it was in. You didn't really have to worry about shelling, and but anyway, that was passed on to the new chief radio operators. I did not build that. And then we'll get on to the ride home. When I was up in Korea in the hills, there were no roads, there were no trucks, there were no women. I had not seen a civilian for almost a year. And we finally got on a train going home to, well, that train was from, like the 38th parallel south to the tip of Korea. And but anyway, that's the inside of a train, and I was very happy to be on that. But as we went through all these towns, we finally saw, civilian men and women, and that was the first time we saw, local people. And then the last one was the fireboats in Seattle Harbor, and that was a welcome sight, and we were home. Well, I do have work to do. I wish I could make it flow better, Sam.